back to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. Jason Balin, Hard Money Bankers, co-host Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse. Looking forward to another great episode with another great guest tuning in from Puerto Rico. We're going to introduce Bob Diamond here in a second, but real estate attorney with tons and tons of experience. So I'm sure Ian and myself are going to learn something and definitely have a lot of questions to go along with this. If this is your first time viewing, watching, listening to this, our podcast in general, I promise we're going to keep this entertaining. It's going to be fun. You're going to learn something. And if you're a return viewer, follower, listener, watcher, thanks again for all your support. Certainly couldn't do it without you.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited as I just peeled off my sweatshirt, looking at our guest who's sitting in beautiful Puerto Rico. We'll show you guys here in a second. But more importantly, we bring in guests that are real people doing real deals. They're not gurus. They're not trying to sell you something. They're just telling you about their story, and they're one of us. So I'm super excited for today. Guys, if you get any value out of the show, the best compliment we can give our guests is by sharing the show. We don't care about the likes or subscribes, but if we can give our guests shares, that will help them grow their business, and that's what we're excited for. So enough about Jason and I, and we can all admire Bob's scenery down there in Puerto Rico as it starts to get cold up here in the Northeast. What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, well, sometimes it's too hot here. It can be 85. So.
Yeah. Okay.
We were complaining about the heat up in the Mid-Atlantic for a while, and very soon we're going to be complaining about the cold. So I can relate. Bob, maybe we should just start off, just do a little quick backstory. Tell us kind of how you got into real estate.
So, early on, I watched too many of those late night infomercials when I was young. And, I wasn't a corporate guy. I didn't want to be in a big corporation. I started out my career that way in a place called Arthur Anderson, which is, old line accounting firm. And I just couldn't do it. I'm like, I cannot sit in this cubicle for the next 40 years of my life. I just can't do it. So I started looking into real estate as a way to, sort of make my fortune and way in the world. Made sense to me. I'm like, you buy this thing, you put it into service, and then you benefit for a lifetime. And if you want to generate some cash, you maybe flip some properties. And so I learned about that. And I started buying properties at foreclosure auctions, both tax sale and mortgage foreclosure auctions, and fixing some up and selling them, fixing other ones up and renting them, and built a career from there. And so that's how I got started in real estate. And then this entertained some people, I think. So I was paying lawyers a lot of money. And I thought, I paid these guys at the time, it was like $300 or $400 an hour. I'm like, I paid these guys like $300 or $400 an hour. Maybe if I went to law school, I could just work kind of part-time as an attorney, make $300 or $400 an hour, and then have plenty of time for real estate investing. So I'm probably the only attorney that ever went to law school, never intending to practice, but just intending to do better in real estate. And that actually worked out. Well, I wouldn't suggest going to law school for 3 years for that. I think you can just hire lawyers, but that's the way that worked.
Yeah, no, I mean, so you're an accountant, you're an accountant, you go back to law school, you don't want to sit in the cubicle. What was it about real estate that attracted you to real estate, to quote unquote getting you out of the cubicle? Like, why was it that business? Presumably, I mean, as you mentioned, you're literally mentoring people at Harvard Business School right now. Yes. So obviously you're some sort of entrepreneur, and you don't just magically acquire this trait. Why was it real estate over any other business?
Real estate made sense to me because it's tangible. I'm kind of a tangible guy. I like things I can see, kick, feel, understand it. Because when I deal with the Harvard startups, for example, a lot of it's intangibles. Everybody's doing AI startups and all this intellectual property that can literally go to zero in a heartbeat. If someone comes out with a better product, or if it doesn't work, you have nothing. In real estate, even if your project doesn't work, you still have the real estate, and there's something you can do with it. So I like that tangible aspect of it. It made a lot of sense to me. When I was young, my dad had a couple of rental properties, and I saw that he could receive money every month, even though he didn't necessarily do anything that month. Now, everybody complains about tenants and toilets, but quite honestly, it's not like the toilet clogs up every week. It's every once in a while. So, it made sense to me. And I was like, and it's also expandable because you can own a single family house. You can own an apartment building. You could, I've done developments of vacation homes. You can do all kinds of things. And I think as you go through your career, you can and probably should do bigger things as you go along. You might start off with single family, but I don't think it's the place most people would want to stop.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. That was actually that's a good point. Ian and I have a lot of successful friends that are outside of the real estate space, but they're successful in their own means, and sometimes they're envious of us being full-time quote unquote real estate investors or being involved in real estate, and I don't think they realize, like, hey, this is you have your W-2 job over here. This is kind of what we focus on. There's an active side and a passive side of this investment. Like, what are your thoughts about successful? I don't want to say W-2 employees. I don't want that to sound degrading, but successful corporate, non-entrepreneurs getting into real estate and where to start. Do they start kind of at the small single families, wholesaling, flipping smaller houses, buying one unit, rental properties, or do you think they jump up and try to buy bigger asset classes that potentially have bigger rewards?
I think the bigger asset classes. And the reason I say that is that when you're an executive of any sort, like, your time is at a premium. You've got to be focused at work. You need to get your work done. And then outside of work, you should be able to enjoy your life, spend time with your family, take care of yourself, maybe, get in some sports, whether it's golf or tennis or pickleball or windsurfing or whatever it is you're into. Give yourself time for that. And I think that a high net worth earner is going to get frustrated very quickly with trying to manage like a single family house or two. Because first of all, you can't have a team. There's no way to have a team or competent management for something like that, because it's just not big enough. I'd rather see them buy, 100 or 200 unit apartment complex where you can have on-site management, where you could hire a manager who's competent because there's enough money involved. And I think that's actually a better play. And, of course, you want to educate yourself before you do that. Maybe just go in with some other people's deals. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is find really competent operators and partner up with them as a capital provider, or bring whatever it is I'm bringing to the table, but partner up with really competent people. And one of the mistakes I see people make is they partner up with a buddy who's interested but has no experience or background, and then you have two blind mice trying to run a project. And I think that's just a recipe for bad decision making. And I think I'd rather see people go in on a deal with experienced people who have a proven track record of success and go that way. I think it's better.
Well, there's plenty of capital in the marketplace, and I believe that the person who knows how to operate or wants to operate finds the guy that has the capital, and to your point, they want to concentrate on their high-paying W-2 because they actually enjoy working and they're looking for the equity pops to get out. So that's how you end up in these bad relationships. When in reality, good deals find good capital, and good capital finds good deals and good operators. And taking that time and working through that makes a lot of sense. So, don't jump to the first opportunity that you find. Take the time to do it the right way. And if you're the guy in this scenario that Bob just described, you might have to eat some crow and go do a single family house first to prove that you can do it, to be able to get to those big apartment buildings, to then be able to raise the capital from the right people. So yeah, that's definitely an interesting point. Now back to you and like your career. I mean, and we like to bounce all over the place. It's fun for us because of how our brains work. But is back to you and your career. Like as you're working through this, you are that high paying W-2 person. You decide to take this on your own. Like, what does your first project look like for you? Right, presumably mid 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. My first project was in '89. I bought a little piece of raw land because that's what I could afford. Basically, it was $3,000. It was in a neighborhood of, at the time, $300,000 houses, and it was a buildable lot. So I bought that land. I looked at it, and it was beyond my, I think, development at that point in life and my mindset to actually build a place. So all I did was just, I bought it at a tax foreclosure auction where, the marketing isn't good and the terms of sale are not good because it's cash on the barrelhead, and you often have some title issues to straighten out. And so I bought it, but then cleaned that stuff up and then turned around and sold it to a realtor for $23,000. So, I made $20,000 doing very little. I mean, just little bit of cleanup work, legally speaking.
which is it's something called a quiet title action, which just so your people know so it's not confusing. It's just getting a judge's confirmation that that sale is valid and the title is clean and marketable. And so I did that and I thought, wow, there's $20,000. And at the time I had a W-2 job that was $30,000 a year. Remember, this is 1989. So a while ago. So I made almost as much as I made in a year on one deal that I probably spent 30 hours on from beginning to end. And I thought, well, that's pretty magical. And so that launched me in that career. And at the time, the sales weren't very well known or understood. And I hired a mentor to teach me how the sales worked. And, I spent $7,500 for a coaching program he had. It was great. It was a great spend of my money. My family thought it was nuts. I think they were going to have me committed. But I went and I learned from a guy who was doing it. Like his whole deal was he was in Philadelphia buying properties at tax sales, and he had this little side business of teaching people. And he taught me the business really, really well. And so then I levered that. So for a while I was just doing that, like buy it and flip it. And the other thing I did was also kind of funny. I bought a house where I decided to really learn the renovation business. And by that time I had enough money to quit my job. So I did quit my job, and I got a book from Home Depot called How to Fix a House. It was this red and yellow book. And I sat there for 6 months and I just hired subcontractors. I worked on the house and I did nothing but learn rebuilding a house. And it was interesting because then when I looked at houses after that, I looked at it in a whole different way because I understood the way the systems work. I had some subcontractor relationships and I went on a tear with fix and flip. And that was, but I think that's what's needed. If you're a high income earner, I think you're right. You want to get into it and learn what you're going to learn by doing, because people don't learn otherwise.
Yeah. And when you're in a inflationary, or when you're in an area, a market that's appreciated like it has over the last decade, most people don't even understand the foundation of what they're even doing. They just bought a property and resold it a few months later and they made a profit without even knowing what's up. But that's starting / correcting itself. And I saw that happen, in the early 2000s, the same thing. And, because I was involved in real estate during those times as well. And it's like, I promise you guys, like you can't always buy a property for $200,000 and sell it for $250,000. Nope. And everyone's like, oh, well, DC is insulated, because most of my areas, DC area, Baltimore area. And I'm like, it's not, you shall see.
Nothing's insulated.
Yeah, the last 10 years of gains, you're going to see that you're going to see it all go right back down within a matter of months. And then over a decade at this point, it's creeped all the way back up again. So we shall see where it ends up. Yeah, no, it's interesting. But
true words of wisdom, by the way. I've made a lot of money on that theory and lost a lot of money before I knew that theory. And what is going up will peter out eventually, and often take a big and solid and quick correction. And when it does, you're left holding the bag. And the guys who make a lot of money with bad deals, meaning a deal where they're buying it for 85, 90 cents on the dollar and then flipping it. The only way that works is if you get big appreciation while you're holding it. Otherwise, the math actually doesn't work.
Exactly.
And, you could just look at the math. It doesn't work. But it's almost to their detriment. They have a couple deals that work and then they go all in, and then it's like that. Was that game where you musical chairs, we were around in circles? You found out there's no chair because it's not a solid game. And I think it's what you want to do is be ready when the crash comes and then buy. I made a ton of money in Las Vegas in 2009, 10, 11, because there are properties that were $300,000 dropped to like, I could buy them for 70. I mean, 70,000 for decent property in a middle-class neighborhood that rented for $1,300 a month. I mean, you guys know math. I mean, if you're renting for $1,300 and you paid $70,000 for it, inclusive of fix-up costs, that's just a recipe for making a lot of money. And those quickly return to like 250, 275.
Yeah,
buying them for 70.
But there's the prime example. Like I started buying similar metrics in the hood of West Baltimore or East Baltimore, and I'm dealing with Section 8 houses, and you're buying presumably Class B, A type properties in the suburbs of Vegas doing the same numbers. What's the big difference there? Your numbers were bounce back, right? Like you went from 70 grand to 300 grand. I went from 70 grand And at the height of it, maybe I got $125 if I was like super lucky, and that was I think that's the big difference of being ready, knowing where you want to buy, learning lessons, and ultimately taking back all this information and what to do with it once you achieve all the information.
And I think one of the things people want to think about when you're talking rentals over longer term, better quality properties are where your upside really is, because there's a thought about rental real estate, and I think this is somewhat correct, that really rental real estate is about paying for your properties as they appreciate. And if you're smart, you'll be in a market where it has strong appreciation. Usually you can tell where that's coming just by where job growth is. Where jobs are coming, that's where your increase in prices is coming. And people often don't see it till late. Like if you're waiting until you see it in Money Magazine, it was an opportunity a year and a half ago that's no longer an opportunity. But if you keep your ear to the ground and you go to focus on places where the jobs are coming, and you can get decent neighborhoods that are like clean and neat where you don't feel uncomfortable going in the middle of the night, that's a recipe to become very wealthy. And it's harder because I operated in Philadelphia, which I think is somewhat similar to Baltimore. Very stagnant market. It's not, you just don't have a lot of upside in it. And I didn't build up a big rental portfolio there because of that. Because I'm like, I don't really want that rental portfolio because it never has the cash out.
Yeah. But the age of the homes as well makes it very, very challenging. Obviously if you're in the suburbs, those areas are nicer, but they're a higher price point. But
right.
You're right. Baltimore, and I lend in both those areas, and not a ton in it because the numbers just don't end up working. But those properties that were built, pre-70s or even, as early as the late 1800s, because there's a lot of properties that are built around then. I mean, these investors don't even know what's about to hit them when they're about to buy one of those properties to flip or as a long-term rental. And I feel bad.
It's not a good plan. It really isn't. You're far better off identifying the next Austin or the next Boise or the next Tampa, any of those cities that if you got into those cities in 2010 through 15, you just crushed it because the values have doubled and tripled in those places. And it was very foreseeable. This is not hard to see. Just look where the jobs are going. That's all. It's really simple. It's not no need to overcomplicate it. And I think one of the points you guys made earlier, I think is really something people should consider is that you don't want to buy the first deal that you look at. And the reason for that is there's very little chance that's actually a good deal or the best deal you could find. And you're going to spend your time and your money on it. And once you say yes, by necessity, you're investing time and money in it and you're precluding other things. So smart investors spend time to find the good things. And one of those is like, where am I going to invest? Like, am I looking in Baltimore or am I looking in a new city that's up and coming? And that's up to you. But I would tell you the smart player is going to identify the right place and then look at as many deals as it takes to find the right deal. And, I've historically done a lot of mentoring of people, and I'd mentor people and I would say, look, here are your numbers. If you're buying a house to fix and flip, really want to pay 65 to 70% of retail minus your fix-up costs. And they'd be like, well, you can't buy properties that cheap. And I was like, no, you have to look, you can. But if you actually want to have a successful business, that's what you'll do. Yeah. And I'd have people that would just get tired of it. And some of them would just buy a property. And then I'd see them a couple months later with their head hanging low because they're stuck in this deal that's not working. Like, oh, there was work I didn't know about. It's like, what? A renovation that went over budget? I can't believe it. Like, that describes every renovation I've ever done that went over budget, over time and money, because it's just the way it is. It's just, and you need to build that in the beginning. And same thing with like rentals. To me, I go by this really simple rule, the 1% rule. You guys may have an equivalent, where it's like, if the monthly rent is 1% of my purchase price, I figure it's about break even and it's worth looking at and negotiating. If it's not that, then it's not. So if I had, just to make the math super easy, $100,000 house that's going to cost me that with fix up, and I can rent it for $1,000 a month, it's going to basically break even. It's fine. If it's a good neighborhood, I'd take it. Yep. But anything below that, like if you're spending $200,000 for that house, you get a bad deal. It's just not. It's not a rental. It's just not. And don't pretend that it is. But I would say for everybody out there, like, wait for your good deals.
Well, I think that's what's hard is that people want to hop in the game. They're so amped up. They've learned everything that they're supposed to learn. It's like, I got to go. And I'm a big proponent of swinging the bat. But then in the same sense, they're going, but they don't see when we're all sitting up at night till like 1 o'clock in the morning, combing deals, going through emails, contacting brokers, beating them up, right? It's like, oh, damn, you guys always find deals. It's like, well, no, I'm working all the time. I'm always sorting deals. Right? I know Jason's lead flow. Deals coming all the time, right? It's the same thing. If he wants to make lending opportunities, he needs so many attempts to ultimately get the deal he wants. It's the same thing for us. Just people don't see the emotions that you go through to get there. And I think that's what is hard because we live in such a now society, especially with social media and all the other goofy stuff, that people, feel the need that they got to go. They need the Lamborghini. They want to live next to you in Puerto Rico. They got to do it today, right? But they don't see all the bumps and bruises that you've taken along the way to get there, and I think that's what's hard. And, I call it maturity level. I didn't have it early on to be mature enough to make those decisions, right? So
I think that's a really good way to put it. And it's also, if you look at I think sports is a great analogy for business. When you see the team win, really crush the other team or win the championship, it wasn't like they got together that day and just said, hey, let's play a game today. No, they're in the gym. They're there in August. If it's football, they're there in August, sweating their tails off. They're practically passing out on the field, working out, getting ready for the season. And they're in the gym every day. They're eating right. They're working out. They're just doing everything. And then they get to the game and they dominate. But, you don't the preparation work is what you don't see. And that's the lesson I think to learn is that life is 80% to 90% preparation. And then the opportunity comes along and you are in a position to pounce. You know what you're looking at, you have the connections you need, you have the knowledge you need, and then you pounce. Where the immature business person plays is I got to do something. And the only thing I promise you in any business deal, if you choose a bad business deal, you'll wish you hadn't very soon because it's just work, and no money left over at the end. And it's just bad.
We've all been through it.
Yeah. Yes.
Cut your losses and keep it moving.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about your focus on, overages and excess funds for recovering money left over from tax or mortgage foreclosure auctions. I'm very curious to learn a little bit more about,
So this is the flip side of buying places at a foreclosure auction, because what happens when you buy a place? I'm just concerned about buying at the right price, depending on what my use is for it and what value I see. But when you go to those auctions, you probably notice they're competitive and there are lots of people bidding, and the pricing these days can get to 80 or 85 cents on the dollar, which I think is nuts, but whatever. That's not my problem. But what happens then is there's typically a lot of money that's not needed to pay the debt. And sort of the legal underpinnings to this are that when a creditor forecloses, doesn't matter whether it's a mortgage or a deed of trust or the taxing authority, meaning real estate taxes, when the property sells for more than that debt that's owed, that extra money is available for the former homeowner to claim as their own. And it makes sense if you think about it. This is it's like a HUD-1 settlement sheet. The top line price, whatever it's sold for, is there. And then you have deductions, real estate commissions, debt, like a mortgage, any liens, all that stuff. So, and at the bottom, you get owner's proceeds, right? Or seller's proceeds. A foreclosure sale is no different. The top line is whatever it's sold for at the auction. And then downward, there's first whatever the foreclosing company is owed, it gets paid, whether it's real estate taxes or mortgage. And then there's a deduction for the cost of holding the auction. That's like the realtor's commission. And often there's a spread between what it's sold for versus what that debt was, especially in taxes. Because think about taxes, they average a little less than 2% of the property value per year. The property is going to get sold if you fall 3 to 4 years behind in taxes. So if you're 4 years behind, that's probably 8% of the property value. We'll double it for penalties and interest. But let's say you owed 16% of the property value, and then it goes to auction. It's going to sell for 80% of value. So translate those to real numbers. $100,000 house, because the math is easy. probably owes $2,000 a year in taxes. They get 4 years behind. That's $8,000. They will double that to $16,000 with penalties and interest. Well, the $100,000 property is going to sell for $70,000 to $80,000 at the auction. So if it sells for, $70,000, the low number, and you owe 16, your overage is 70,000 minus 16,000. And what's that? 54,000.
Yep.
So 54,000 is left over. And the thing is, the owners who are now foreclosed have no idea. It's not like they go to the auction to watch their house get sold to some bidder. They're not going there. They're trying to figure out a new place to live. They're panicked. They're upset. They're sad, and they move. And the government, keeps the money in a holding account. And if people get it, then if people apply for it, they do get the money. But if Maryland, for example, I know the numbers there. So in Maryland, this happens, and 72% of the money goes unclaimed in Maryland because they publish statewide figures. And so 72% is never claimed by the former owners because they don't know about it. So they don't know enough to apply for it. So we made a business out of this where we get the lists of people owed the money. We then reach out to them and say, hey, Fred, good news. There's some money that you're owed, and we'd be happy to get it for you for a percentage. And then we go, and the people say yes, hire us. We go and get the money. We typically take 40% of what we get. Other students I have will charge 30%, but anywhere 30 to 40%. That's your money, and the rest of the money goes back to the former owners. And I love this business for two reasons. One, I make great money, which is wonderful. But the second thing is you're helping people who've lost everything get back some start over money, right? Because if I take that person owed $50,000 and I get them 60% of that, so they get a check for $30,000 when they thought they'd lost everything, that's a life changer for them.
Wait, so are these primarily tax sales or mortgage sales or deed of trust
You
sales?
can do both.
Either. Okay.
You could do so. Deed of trust and mortgage are the same thing. I mean, it's just a different way of securing a loan against a property. So either way, and the difference is between the two, mathematically, it's the same. It's you take the top line sale number, deduct the debt, and then what's left over is an overage. But the functional difference in the business, tax sales, they're lists that list every property that was sold, and you can you'll get a list of like 50 properties if you look at any of them. In mortgage foreclosure, you really have to track individual cases because those are individual sales. Either the sheriff is foreclosing on behalf of a bank or the trustee is foreclosing, but they're all individually handled. And so there's not a central list.
And the margins presumably higher on the tax sale, right? Because usually
so it's interesting you say that. That's what I thought too, but no, actually both are good, but I'll tell you the difference. The mortgage foreclosures are in better neighborhoods and nicer properties. So they tend to sell for more. So you can get some pretty good numbers. Like 6-figure ones are not unusual in mortgage. Yeah. In tax, the properties are in worse neighborhoods and worse conditions. So they sell for a little less, but it's a high volume practice, meaning I can go on anytime, day or night, look up a list. And if you guys can show a screen, I can show you a list so you can see what I'm talking about. I don't know if that's easy for you to do or not.
Yeah, give us the link. We'll toss it.
I'll just tell you, just if you type into Google search DeKalb County excess funds, DeKalb's in Georgia is DEKALB, county excess funds.
County
excess funds.
I'm going to share my screen here in a second.
Share your screen. I'll walk you through it. It's really interesting. I'm sure you and your listeners will love this because it's an interesting,
absolutely
little exercise.
Guys, if you're on audio, make sure you hop over to YouTube or one of our channels and check this out. But this is a real live case study right here by Bob.
Present, share screen. Okay, give me one entire screen. All right, hold on one sec. All right, so
here we go.
County excess funds.com.
No, Google search DeKalb.
No, not .com. It's DeKalb County excess.
Google search that. DEKALB County excess funds.
Wait, what's the first word? I'm sorry.
DeKalb, Georgia. DEKALB. I'm well traveled, Bob. I got this.
Be like boy. Yeah, there you go. And then click on the tax commissioner. For anybody doing this, make sure you click on the government sites because you don't need to pay for these leads. And just go down a little bit and you'll see in excess funds, there will be a link to a PDF. Let me just go down on the page.
Keep going. Oh, right there. Jesus, that's it.
There you go. And make it bigger so everybody can see it. So that's an example.
Sick.
That's a live, real live. The last sale they held was July 30th. That's why the sale is dated that. And you can see the excess amount. This is very easy math because it just has the amount.
Some recent ones.
I see one for 125 in there.
There's one for $500,000, $550.
There you go. So 550 is that? It's hard for me to read. Is this something Home Properties Inc.?
Yeah, yep. Luke's Home Properties LLC.
So what would have happened there is somebody tried to do some real estate deal. Either maybe they're trying to develop, a little cul-de-sac or building a house, and their deal fell apart. They lost the property at tax sale, and now there's $550,000 left over.
So this is a tax sale one, not a mortgage one.
Yeah, this is tax sale because with mortgage, you really have to track individual cases, so they're a lot more involved. So we focus on tax sales because this, like, if you look at this list, it's 3 pages. I don't know what's on a page, maybe 30 leads. That's somewhere 100 to 120 leads. And lots of them worth pursuing.
So, all right. So my brain's going a mile a minute. I got to ask you, you have, I'm guessing, go on a limb here, automated calls. You're basically searching the data, skip tracing these people, putting them into some sort of lead flow, and basically almost automating this whole business. And then someone says yes, you get an agreement that says I can represent Lux Home Properties, and then you approach the state and say I'm claiming on behalf of Lux Home Properties, right? Is it pretty
you got it? Yeah. And you know what's good about that business that I love? It's like simple enough for you to put it together in 33 seconds, which obviously there's lots of details, but yeah, that's exactly what we do. So we pick the ones we want. I'm not going to work in like a $2,000 lead, but the larger ones, which our average deal is 104,000. So, we're looking at larger leads. People look at any leads they want, but then we skip trace them to get their contact info. And for anybody out there who doesn't know what skip tracing is, it just means you're doing computer research to get people's contact info. These days, that's super easy to do. And then we reach out to them typically by phone, tell them good news. Hey, there's some money that we've located that you could have if you hire us. And then we have a written agreement we represent them and we go and get the money. You don't have to be an attorney or anything for this. And then we apply for the funds. It's really just a one-page claim form. We fill the form in, submit it, work through any kinds of issues. There aren't a lot of issues, but you can have things like somebody's trying to steal the money we run into every once in a while.
Sometimes passed away. Yeah,
someone passed away, so you look up their obituary, and that's going to get you the family members. Then you skip trace the family members and say, hey, your deceased family member is eligible to claim some money. Would you be interested in working on this?
And so all this is beyond redemption periods. And
so in that list in Georgia, there's a 1-year redemption period. So you want to work on deals that, like you see the one from 2021, that one's mature. Anything that's in the past year can't be claimed yet. You can still sign them up, but you can't turn in a claim until the expiration of a year.
Got it. Yeah. So these are going back as, 4.5 years at this point where.
Yeah. Like that Subash lead. Subash is owed what? 266,000.
Yeah.
It's from 21 and this is 25. He doesn't know a thing about that money. Poor guy. And it's a lot of money. Like if I worked with him, I get him $200,000.
Right, exactly.
He'd be one very happy guy.
Damn, dude. Damn, what a simple dude. Like, there's so many ways to cut it up. So then, I guess, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, is a lot of people want to get started in a wholesaling or these other businesses that could be capital intensive in a way. This is not capital intensive. You make the money. Then how do you see fit? What do you see fit to do with your money? You make all this money. Where do you place your capital then afterwards? Because this isn't a capital intensive business.
So I own real estate and basically I own high quality assets that other people are running their deals. So I'll invest in other people's deals because I just don't want to be bothered anymore with the management side of it. It's just not worth my time. And I have what I would call a balanced portfolio. So for me, I have a professional money managers. JP Morgan Chase manages my money. And they keep about 80% of it. 20% I play with. So I'll do 5% to gold and precious metals, 5% to cryptocurrency. Used to be 5%. Now it's grown a lot more than that, but I'm not selling that stuff. So it just stays. And then I do, 5 to 10% on just startups. Like I was looking at a deal yesterday. It's heavy lift drones, which was interesting. It's like a drone that can lift 2,500 pounds. And there are all kinds of use cases from that. So, I just look for interesting things to invest in. And, that's how I run it. So 80% professional money managers and the balance to like play money. And professional money managers count as deals where I'm in an apartment complex, and there I look for things that are growing where the population is growing. Like I was in early in Miami, I was early in Tampa, early in Vegas. And it's not like, this is not like master science. It's like, where are the jobs going? And I think today in the political climate we're in, not to touch the third rail, but just I would say, you want to look for a place that's business friendly. Like I don't invest in business hostile places. I don't have enough time in my day. Like, can you imagine if you own properties in Manhattan right now and you have a guy who, some socialist dude that looks like he's going to get elected. He wants to lock in rates or rents rather. No, thank you. No, I'm not interested. I want to be left alone and just go make money. And my time with
there
friends.
was a report that just came out about Maryland, because we both have a lot of dealings in Maryland, and that it's a shrinking state, and that's not good, right? Because where we have our storage properties all across the Southeast, they're growing states. Even though Louisiana and Mississippi are some of the poorest states in the country, they still have growing populations because businesses are going there because of some of those economics that are taking place, and the land acquisition is so much cheaper. I mean, you're a Philly guy. You can only stuff so much shit into a little spot, right? Like, and it's wild. It's wild. I was just in Utah, and I every time I go back to Salt Lake, I'm just blown away by the growth that you see there.
Bro, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, Nashville, Austin, like all these cities, and it's just like it's very, very interesting. So,
and all you have to do, and just I want to stress this for everybody: don't invest in yesterday. Don't invest in Austin now. You should have been there 10 years ago, but that's okay. There's someplace else that's growing. And what you want to look at is exactly what Ian was talking about. It's population and jobs. Those are the two drivers. It's really not more complex than that. It's population and jobs. And you can go to some sub criteria, like I don't like highly regulated places just because I don't like to deal with it. I don't want to deal with an overbearing government. No, thank you. Pass.
Yeah, 100%. Bob, this has been like super informative. One thing that we like to ask all our guests before we tell them where they can find you on the internet is, what's one book or podcast? You're very well spoken, very knowledgeable. What's one book or podcast you think everybody should go check out, read up on, or you just find interesting as a whole?
So, man, just one. I'm a big reader. I like to educate myself a lot. For business, I really like Dan Sullivan. So Dan Sullivan has a bunch of little short books he's put out, anything from about scaling up a business, about being happy as an entrepreneur. And I think is really good, wise things to say. So I love Dan Sullivan. I think he's terrific. For marketing, I love Dan Kennedy. It's like the Dans. So Dan Kennedy, I think, knows the most about marketing. And the thing to know is that if you think it doesn't work because your business is different, that's your first mistake. And that's one of the things Dan Kennedy will tell you, that it's not that.
Very good point.
I think those two. And I also like Vern Harnish has a book called Scaling Up. So if you're trying to scale up your business from where you started as kind of your own, like when I started the Overages business, it was like a little tiny desk in the side of my office developing that business. That was back in 2014 when I started that. And since then I've scaled it up to where we have like 40 employees. And it's a different game when you're managing teams and managing employees, and you want to have a life also. And I think Vern Harnish Scaling Up, I think, is terrific for that. I think it really lots of wise things to say. So they'd be my three. And the other one, who I think is more big picture, not as directly useful in business, but still a smart guy, is Ray Dalio, who Ray Dalio is a big thinker. And I usually, this is really sad that my life is this, but this is what it is. So I have a 3-year-old, and we read Ray Dalio's books every night. So instead of the Three Little Bears, she reads Ray Dalio with me.
Hey,
Nothing wrong with that.
Head start. I like it.
She loves it. It's bizarre. She's like, I want to read Ray Dalio. I'm like, seriously? All right, global macroeconomics, here we come. And
yeah.
she
just wants to fall asleep quicker. That's all. She doesn't want to tell you. But no, that's no, seriously though, that's awesome to get them involved early, and you don't know what's being picked up, and I mean that's very advanced, as I would say. We will get those books in the show note. Bob, where's the best place people can find you? I mean, you literally broke down the business in 2 seconds, but sometimes people still need hand holding. Where's the
there's a lot of details in there, because you got to do like what I do when it's an estate, what I do. So there's lots of details, but anyway, bobdiamond.com is the easiest way to start. And I'm happy to teach you about the business. We have a teaching business. I'm here to pitch that, but we have that. What you need though to get started in the business is you got to look at each state, say, how long do I have to claim the money? And there's funky little rules. Like I'll give an example. In Maryland, for example, you have 36 months to claim the money post sale, but you can only work on the money after it's been sitting unclaimed for 2 years. So if you get a Maryland list, you want to let it mature to 24 months, then reach out to people. And I think the state's theory is, give people a chance to find it themselves. They won't find it. I can tell you that they will not find it. And the proof of that is that 72% of the money goes unclaimed. So of course they don't know about it. Otherwise they'd claim it. You need to know those rules. If you're in Georgia, you have 5 years to claim the money, but the first year you can't claim. You can sign someone up, but you can't submit it. So you want to do that research with whatever state you want to work in. And you then need to develop a good set of contract agreement with the client. You also need a limited power of attorney, so you can do whatever you need to do to get the money, because I consider my clients helpless little kittens that can't do anything for themselves. You got to just do all this for them. So when you're thinking about the business, just think, I've got to not rely on them to do anything except sign my initial agreements up front. And other than that, it's a pretty straightforward business. It's like the business you guys would be in with finding good loans to make or finding good properties to buy. You want to look at enough deals and talk to enough people so you get the right deal. I don't deal with difficult people. Like if someone's just giving me a hard time trying to negotiate my fees up front, I'm like, no. So, I'm happy to help you. We do a great job, but I'm not happy to discount, and I'm not happy to work with difficult people. Because I can, and you can too, if you do a strong marketing campaign. You got to talk, just like you guys. Jason, how many people do you talk to before you decide to make a loan, or how many deals do you look at?
1,000. 1 out of 1,000.
There you go. And Ian, you look at more than one property before you buy one? Just ask.
Oh yeah, it's definitely hundreds of properties. We're always looking for the best deal.
Yeah, and business
we're
like
all
that.
Yeah, we're all. They're marketing companies. Nobody realizes how big of a marketing operation any real estate company really is, and they don't want it. They're like, "Well, I didn't get into this business to be a marketer." It's like, well, you might be in the wrong business. My deals are gonna be way better than yours.
I think it's small business. You eat what you kill.
That's right.
And that's right. And you don't want to kill a half diseased carcass and eat it. No, because it'll make you sick. So
life's too short for that. So. Bob, we'll get all that stuff in the show notes. We appreciate your time, your information. This was awesome. This is the first time we've ever heard about overages, so I'm sure a lot of people will go check that out at bobdiamond.com. You enjoy Puerto Rico as it gets colder here, and guys, we will catch you.
Can I give you the Puerto Rico secret? I'll give you guys. I'm going to make Jason cry now, but Ian, I won't. So in Puerto Rico, they have a special tax deal to attract entrepreneurs and investors. So your tax burden here on capital gains is 0, and on income is 4%. And that's the total tax load. So if people are, if you're doing an exit, if you're running a business that you can run remotely, it's a place to be, because I used to live in New York City where my tax rate was like 50%. I took it here to 4. So it's a good thing to look at. And it's also the other thing that's interesting, it's an entrepreneur center, because people that move down are doing something where they're doing well, making money. And they're also kind of, pioneers in a way, because you move to a foreign culture. But it's part of the United States. You don't need a passport or anything. And we're having so much fun down here because, it's just, you have a whole bunch of entrepreneurs that just get together and we do stuff together. And
it's awesome.
It's something for anybody in business just to keep in back of your mind that it's there. Doesn't mean you're going to do it now, but like if you're running, like Jason, a lending business, you could just lend from here and cut your tax. Ian, you'd run a management fee for your properties. You'd still pay tax when you sell, if you sell, but you could take out all the top line cash flow tax free because you're, so
that's smart. And we can golf 365 days a year, Jason. Just want to let you know.
Man,
you guys want to come down and visit? That's we've got 3 golf courses here. So in my community, we got 3. So anyway,
either way, Bob, thank you so much for all the information, guys. We'll get all the information in the show notes, and we will catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.